across the country, and halfway to that point is still my state. So,
all right, stream's going.
And that's the last I'm going to say about that.
Wow, Seth, that was golden. I'm so glad the audience was here to hear that. Yeah. Oh, wait, darn. It's like that line out of Forrest Gump. Right on, man. Nothing more needs to be said. Wow, Seth, that was golden. I'm so glad the audience was here to hear that. Oh, wait, cool. Darn.
I didn't hear me, though. But as long as you did, that's the important thing.
Right on, man. Nothing more needs to be said. Wow, you're there. Seth, that was golden. I'm so glad the audience was here to hear that. Oh, wait, cool. Darn. Why are you so far down,
I didn't hear me, though.
There you go. That
but
was
as long
loud.
as you did, that's the important thing.
Right on, man.
Cool.
Nothing more needs to be said. Wow, you're there. It's a loopy loop thing going on there. All right, I'll go ahead and stop that because CPU. I just need to stop whining and go spend $800 on a real box. But just
because if you're going to spend $800, why not go ahead and add this one other thing? And then this other, it's only a few dollars more, and you're looking at $1,500 to come out of there with what you want.
Actually, I've got 2 good monitors. I'd like to throw a third one in for good measure. So really, $800 is the premium machine. I could do it for probably $5. I just need processor, RAM, storage, and a case. That's all.
Yeah. And you can find a good monitor on Craigslist usually all the time.
All right, so that's going. The live stream is up. I don't see anybody in the chat room this time, but the call has gone out.
Who's Nordic?
Yeah, that's an IRC.
Yeah, he's been there today. I think that's Mike the Butcher. I think that's Nordic. Mike the former Butcher.
Oh no, we just revealed him. He's got to join WITSEC again.
Okay, let me preemptively power down. Okay, and begin recording.
Right.
Focal processing. Okay.
Okay.
Since no one's in the chat room, I'm out of there.
Well, if somebody comes in, I'll let you know.
Okay.
I monitor it. There and that there.
I just don't have the screen space.
I understand. That's why I say I'd like a third monitor, for that very reason. Because the Hangout window takes up a full monitor now. Because with the new latest update to Chrome, I can no longer capture a window. I have to capture a screen. Can do it with Firefox, just can't with Chrome. Except I can't use Hangouts in Firefox. I'm complaining about this free service, right? But there's nothing I can pay for that's better.
Yeah, I agree with you. You'd pay for it to get the problems out of the way if you had the option.
I maybe just go back to multi-screen Skype. But, I don't find it better. Switching back and forth is not as easy. Anyway, whine, complain, moan, first world problems.
Yeah, fun times were had by none.
Okay, here we go. Starting recording, making a marker, and scene. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GeekRant, episode 286, Geeks on Vacation, recorded May 21st, 2017, and brought to you by Element OP Productions, elementop.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the only show on the internet where geeks rant. I am your host, Mark, the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me this week, as always, are your 2 stalwart co-hosts, Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson, and Miles, the Aussie Wakeham. Hello, gentlemen.
Howdy, Mark, and welcome to the fine folks joining us this here evening.
And it's vacation time at long last.
Yes.
Looking forward to this.
Almost. We have one more week, and then Miles will be world traveling. But because we didn't want to wait till the last minute, we're doing it this week. I have no idea why. Just because.
Well, because other people might be looking to travel, and we wanted to help them prepare. See, because we're just so magnanimous about our awesomeness.
Well, that's, the end of May, actually probably middle of May is when we should have been doing this, is when people start planning their vacations. And Miles has some travel hacking tips. Some he's not going to share with you because if everybody knows about it, he won't be able to do it anymore. But some he is willing to share with us. But I just wanted to say very briefly that, Seth, you have completely broken me of actually reading the show intro. You tricked me so many times that now I actually check the calendar at the bottom left corner of my clock of my computer to read the date, and I look at the top of the show doc for the title because I can no longer trust that what's there is what I typed at the beginning of the day. Just
wait,
you're welcome.
What? I mean, I don't ever change the date.
Yes, you did.
I might write it in Roman numerals or something.
That's changing it. If it's not the same words, it's changed.
Okay, no, I don't change the date. I merely change the format of the date.
Which by definition is a change.
But it's still the same date, so it's not a change.
So anyway, I just wanted to very briefly, I watched Passengers today. Beautiful People in Space, Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. Seth gave a review of it a while back, and I think I can pretty much sum up everything he said with meh. I decided to watch it today. It came in the little red envelope, and I wanted some good space scenes to test out a new piece of equipment that I'll talk about in just a second. I have a 4-word review of it, and it is Jerry Maguire in space.
And why do you say that?
Well, because it's the same plot. It's the same undertones. A selfish guy goes through a personal transformation. Girl finds everything she wants, only to find out that it's not what she wanted, only to realize that it was what she wanted. And you complete me. It's the same. It's the same thing, just in space.
See, I think it's more Jeff Dunham. I kill you. So that's. That's what I was waiting for you to say. You complete me, so I could throw out my alternate wording. So
I wasn't a bad movie. I don't regret having watched it. I got to see Jennifer Lawrence naked a couple of times, but other than just a way to pass an afternoon, that's about all it is. It's bubblegum for the brain, just something to look at while you're doing something else.
I was watching. It wasn't obviously, everything wrong with or how it should have ended. But there was one who described, Lawrence Ex Machina. And I was like, that's the best description ever. And I'm glad I saw the film just because I got to hear that one reviewer say that. And that made it worth it even more.
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne shows up for like 3 scenes and really has no reason to be there other than the plot something that he does has to move the plot along, and it couldn't have happened without him. But otherwise, it truly is a Deus Ex Machina, a god from without of the machine. It just had to happen to move the plot along.
Yeah. Speaking of people who don't have to be there, how much did Andy Garcia make for like half a second of screen time?
He didn't even say anything, and he got billing. Like at the end of the credits when it's rolling, it's Jennifer Lawrence, Chris Pratt, Lawrence Fishburne, and Andy Garcia. Did he even have a word? I don't think he had a line.
I don't think so.
Yeah, just showed up with a beard, and that was it.
So that tells you the extended director's cut alternate ending. Has like everybody waking up and doing a 50-year party, and it's their grandkids who arrive at the colony or something. So I'm looking forward for that.
All right. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Warning, spoilers possibly.
Yeah, you got the timing on that one right.
Hey, I have lag over here, okay?
It's not a movie that can be spoiled, honestly. It is so straightforward. I could tell you everything that happened. I won't because PedantNet is out there. But I could tell you every major plot point, and it wouldn't ruin the movie in any way because the movie isn't ruinable. It's not good enough to be ruined.
Okay, let me ask you a question. The very end, when they open the doors and Andy Garcia beholds the promenade, did that not drop your appreciation for the movie just a little bit?
Well, I mean, it threw any dose of realism out the window. I mean, it was hanging on by a very thin thread already, and finally they just said realism, schmealism, and went with that.
Okay, I was just, I mean, like I say, it was still enjoyable. It wasn't a great movie anywhere, but just that one scene which did not need to be there, except mega Hollywood happy ending, except it wasn't. But it's just like, look, pretty squirrel.
It's
and
it's another one of those movies also that plays fast and loose with physics. And as a physicist, armchair physicist, that bothers me. One scene in particular, a guy is free floating in space. He throws something to reverse his direction. Now, Newton says that's absolutely correct. That would absolutely happen. The force of him throwing something would have an impact on his trajectory. But in order to completely reverse his direction with the speed and force that he did, he would have had to throw a boulder at roughly Mach 2. Just saying. All right.
Well, maybe it was just made out of some really awesome metal.
Unobtainium. Speaking of bad movies. So, Seth, what did you do today while I was watching mostly naked Jennifer Lawrence?
Well, when I got to church this morning, I found out the pastor was sick, and so I got to preach again, which is even though it's a hard process for me, I really enjoy doing it. So I was very grateful to have the opportunity. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Did you have to do the whole sermon?
Yeah. So,
wow, that's awesome, man.
I was originally scheduled to preach next week, so I kind of had an outline that I didn't think went for next week, and come to find out it was because I was preaching it this week. So I was only halfway unprepared.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a nice resource for your church to have, that somebody you can just tap on the shoulder and say, "You're up."
Yeah, so now I got to get another just in case sermon at least halfway ready because I used that one. So
I had a very similar experience, only vocally. I got an email at like 9:30 last night that said, "You're singing on the praise team in the morning." Oh, good. I haven't rehearsed any of that, but okay, let's go. Anyway, so Miles, I'm guessing you're talking about the TV show that I have been interested in seeing. So tell me about Cooper's Treasure.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's on Discovery. Okay, Gordon Cooper. We all know who he is, right?
Gordo,
the Mercury astronaut. So this is a really weird storyline, but you got to watch this thing. It's so cool. It's on Discovery. So what happened? Apparently, when this guy in the 60s was floating around in orbit, apparently NASA or the Department of Defense or something gave him some super secret mission that he was supposed to do while he was orbiting the planet, to film nuclear silos. To look for evidence of arsenals of nuclear missiles and so on. Well, he did that, but apparently there's a lot of really empty time up there when you're floating around the planet. So what he also did was he managed to see from space all these areas of the ocean where there were shipwrecks. Apparently he could see evidence of ships back then, and he documented like latitude and longitude positions of all of these shipwrecks. Now, I didn't know much about shipwrecks. As far as I knew, it was that a few ships went down. Now, apparently there are hundreds of thousands of ships dating back to like the 1400s that are all over the place, particularly in the Caribbean. And he managed to create this map with all of these plot points of all these places he saw evidence of shipwrecks from space. And this guy, I tell you what, he documented everything. When he died, and when he died, he opened up all of the stuff, all of his notes and everything that his widow kept in the garage. Well, through the last 10 or so years of his life, he had this sidekick, this kid that was the son of a treasure hunter. And I guess maybe that's where they had some sort of common ground or something. And this kid basically worked alongside of Gordon Cooper as he was putting together all of the documentation of all of these plot points and maps and all the stuff he did from space way back when. And then he died, and the kid inherited most of the maps. Not all of them, most of them. So the TV show is about this kid's journey to go and find the treasure. And it's brilliant. It's like sort of space geek and treasure hunter and pirates, and the kid's father, who's an old treasure hunter who was very successful. He's a real horrible guy. But anyway, he apparently he holds a part of the treasure map that the kid needs, and he has to negotiate with his father, and the whole thing's really complicated. Anyway, it's about 4 episodes in, and they're about to head off into the Caribbean. The only thing that's really cool, it sounds like, just another one of those made up TV shows, sort of, but every time they open the show, they have this static title screen, and it tells, introduces the concept of what Gordon Cooper found and everything. And at the very bottom, it says, because I haven't seen this yet, so I'm assuming this will happen, it says, and the kid finds billions of dollars in treasure. And the fact they said that, I want to watch this thing and find the kid find billions of dollars of treasure. Apparently that's not unheard of. These
Right.
old Spanish galleons are rife with gold and silver and jewelry and rubies and whatever else.
That sounds.
Anyway.
I've seen the previews of it, and I made a mental note to check it out. I didn't even know it was on, so I'll go back and look at the on-demand stuff. I'm sure Discovery's really good about keeping stuff on demand, so I'll check it out. Sounds interesting to me.
I think you'll enjoy it. It's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, have you watched any like Curse of Oak Island or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I love that show.
Yeah, I every time I find it, I just find myself compelled to watch it. So
Yeah.
because it's history, and it's kind of could be cool, could not be cool. I hate how they drag it out. I wish they would just say, yes, we found $18 trillion worth of stuff, or we got to the end of the hole and there was a smiley face emoji waiting on us. So,
Well, you gotta build the drama.
yeah.
Well, this is like that, but way more. It's steroids, It's pirate ships and spacecraft and the whole bit, and it's way over the top. But it's very believable, and it's a really well done story. I think you'd enjoy it.
All right, Seth, am I right that you didn't give us any tech news this week, or am I looking at a different copy of the document?
No, I didn't
Okay.
put any tech news in.
All right, that's fine. I just.
I
wanted
mean,
to-
because every time I do, we don't use it. So,
well, you're only cheating yourself, Seth.
yeah, like I say, I was a little out of it this afternoon. So,
Teacher
sorry.
never takes up the homework. I just wanted to say I had one of those moments yesterday where it was A, I'm in the wrong business, and B, I'm really glad I'm not in that business. I had some tree work that needed to be done. You Texas people won't understand, but apparently in other parts of the world, trees grow bigger than about 40 feet. And when trees get really big, you can't just put a chainsaw on a pole and take care of them yourself. You need rigging and pulleys and trained professionals. And outside of my house, there's some 100-ish feet tall pine trees. And so I needed some professional. When we first bought the house last summer, we knew it was going to needed to be done. But when one of the last big storms came through and a branch started tapping on my daughter's bedroom window, it didn't come through it, but it had moved to the point where it was banging on it. I was okay, then now it's time to deal with it. So I called in a tree service to take out a couple of dead trees. And again, if you're like me, you won't believe this story. Because before I moved here, I thought that's ridiculous. You don't hire people to take down trees. You go get an axe and you do it yourself. No, not when the tree is 75 feet tall and will fall on, somebody else's property if you don't deal with it properly. You need professionals. And so I called in these professionals and paid them like 3 weeks' salary. It was not an inexpensive process at all. And I was thinking, man, I'm in the wrong business. These guys are working for a day, and I paid them that much money. I need to look into this. And then I watched them work for a day, and I'm pretty sure they're underpaid. These guys were just I always love watching really skilled people do whatever they do, even if what they're doing doesn't interest me. I used to love to watch Tiger Woods play golf. Back when he was on his rise to prominence, because it was so clear that he was a special guy, even though I don't care anything about golf. And I one of my favorite things to do is watch the garbage truck come through any neighborhood because they move with such a fluidity and there's music in what they do. They've done the same thing thousands of times. They maneuver these thousands of pounds of machinery like ballet dancers. It's amazing. And watching these guys was sort of the same way. They didn't have to talk to each other. They each knew what they needed to do. It was a crew of about 8 people, and they were doing some really complicated stuff, throwing a pulley over this tree, tying it onto this limb. These 2 guys pull it back while this one buttresses it, while this guy climbs up and hacks off just in the right area so that you don't take too much that these 2 guys down here can't handle the weight of it. And it was just amazing watching them work, but also, gosh, it had to be the hardest thing that a human could do. Standing up on the top of the tree, literally gripping the tree with your ankles, with the spikes, hanging out over a limb, trusting that little piece of nylon to hold you up. I have much respect for what they do. I just wanted to. They'll never listen to this. I probably don't speak English well enough to listen to it based on my experiences with them yesterday. But it was just so cool. If you ever get a chance to watch some professional tree people do their thing, it's a pretty cool show.
Did you offer them ice water or the room temperature water?
Well, they brought their own cooler of beverages. Okay. So I didn't offer them anything other than
okay. Sorry, I was just, trying to tie this into previous episodes.
Right. I got it. Miles, I'm guessing there aren't large trees in the desert either.
No, palm trees, though.
Okay.
We got, because we'll get this time of year, they all come knocking on your door to say, can we go and trim your palms? And of course, you got to get it done, although you'll have little beads all through your pool and everything. So yeah, it's amazing. These guys, they're crazy. They would take a chainsaw when it's running, sort of attach it to their belt, and then start climbing up a palm tree. Just wrap their legs around it and manually just inch their way up the palm tree, whip the chainsaw out, and then zip, 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 zip. The thing's had a haircut, and they're down on the next one. They're crazy. I don't know how they do it.
They brought one of those big industrial mulchers and a truck. And, I mean, this was a scale of work where they actually had to go empty the truck and come back. That was how much work I had to do have done because it had been clearly ignored here for a decade or more. But it was just so amazing to watch those guys work. It was as good as any circus show, truly.
Yeah, and so since it was pine trees, you really couldn't save it to burn in the house. Yeah,
well, it wasn't just pines. The pines were just the biggest ones. There was some oak and some maples and the thing that drops the balls that are like death.
Sweet gum
Sweet
trees?
gum, that one. Yeah, we took one of those out because of the death balls. It was actually perfectly healthy. I just got tired of murdering myself walking out in my own driveway. So much pain. If you think stepping on a Lego is painful, step on a sweet gum barefooted. Sweet gum ball. Rough. And I don't know what this means, Seth. So, Black Hat?
It's that movie starring Chris Hemsworth before he was Thor.
Okay.
And it was a kind of a thriller whodunit mystery movie that the director tried so hard to make it an action movie. It was oh my gosh, y'all, this movie was so bad. It could have been great. There were some, it could have been great, but it was bad. So if you haven't seen Black Hat, and based on how much money it made in the box office, you didn't, don't watch it now. Save yourself, save your friends. If somebody even mentions the word Black Hat, say, I will shoot you if you watch that. And not pleasantly. So just a bad movie. And I was like, hey, hacker culture kind of stuff. If you do watch it, know that they take linear plot as just kind of a guide, not something to be followed literally. The chaos theory of plot management, there's just plot points out there and they hit them in random orders, and it's not good for anybody. So don't watch Black Hat. Very bad movie. It Was Over was the highlight of it.
Yeah.
So
wow.
That's really all. But it wasn't cheesy bad. It was just bad. So, you can't mock it. It was just bad. So stay away.
All right. And I wanted to share an experience with Google. Now, you guys may remember this being in the tech industry. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago. Sergey Brin of Google was doing a talk, and he said that our goal in the future is to have gathered enough data and to have tailored things enough to you that you could be walking around and our system says, we know you need some new pants. There's pants on sale over here. Would you like to go get some of those? You guys remember that speech that he gave? It made big news because people were like, the pants police. I don't want Google to know if I need pants. And it was the talk of all the blogs for a while. I had that experience with Google Now this weekend, or last weekend, actually. I have been doing my ongoing man cave project. I've been looking for projectors, passively looking for projectors. I have, I bought a couple of eBay specials and they were doing the job, but I really wanted a full 1080p, high quality, 3000 lumens projector. So I've just been passively looking for stuff using Chrome and Google to search for those things, and not really with any intention to buy. They typically run anywhere from $800 to $1,200 for a good one, and I'm just not ready to plunk down that kind of money yet. But I want to stay abreast of what's coming out, what the new models are, that kind of thing. And one day at work, I got a Google Now card pop up that said, you might be interested in this deal. And it was Newegg was selling off their 2017 model projectors before the 2018s come in at the end of the month. And they were selling BenQ, B-E-N-Q. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. That's how I say it. I think they're a Korean manufacturer, but they're one of the top home enthusiast projector people. They make high quality projectors that people really like, but still, 1200 to 8 to 1200 is pretty standard. And Newegg was selling these via an eBay store. I also use eBay, so Google is tracking that sort of stuff. And they were selling them for $379. That ordinarily would. I mean, it's like I went and looked on Amazon, and I could buy that model from Amazon for like $490, if used. It was $500 used. New ones were still going for $700-800, and Newegg had like less than 150 of them to sell, and it was just a flash sale. And Google said, "Hey, you might be interested in this." And I said, "You know what? I am interested in that." So I purchased at less than half price because of Google's creepy AI. And so I'm all saying, all hail the creepy AI. What do you guys think about that experience? Is that creepy, or is that beneficial, or is it both?
I
Just
like
brought
the half
Skynet
price.
one closer to reality.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, it sounds like a bargain. It sounds like you got a sweet deal.
I did, and I would never have known about that because it was, like I said, it was a flash thing. They only, like I said, they were only selling 150 or so units. It didn't last long, a couple of hours, and the odds of me stumbling into that, doing my searches are almost nothing. It wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for creepy Google spying on me. And I'm okay with that because I get value out of Google collecting my data. And we've had this privacy discussion many times, and I'm all about give you all my data to get, as long as I can get value back. And so by collecting some really innocuous data, stuff I'm interested in, the searches I made, correlating my searches on eBay with my searches on Google, it put these things together and said, this is something you're interested in. Yeah, it is something I'm interested in. You got it right. But also knowing that I'm a world-class tightwad, it put that together and said, you might be interested in this deal. So that to me is the system working exactly like it's supposed to. And if that's not AI, it's a darn good facsimile of it. That is an automated agent working on my behalf intelligently. And welcome to the future.
Do you mount your projector to the ceiling? Is that how you probably set it up?
Well, I built a rack just in the back of my man cave that holds the surround sound system and the Roku and the TiVo and has a shelf for the projector. It is upside down though, because most projectors are sort of built with a point up model, assuming you're going to put it on a desktop. So upright, it was pointing at the ceiling, so I flipped it upside down. So yes and no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool.
No other comments on that? I thought surely this would get some comments about the privacy police.
No, well, I mean, I said you just brought Skynet one step closer to reality. Look, I understand there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy the thrill of the hunt when I'm looking for stuff, and that's part of just, hey, I was able to find this bargain, appeals to me more than some computer program saying, hey, we found this bargain for you, would you like to buy it? I'm like, no, because I didn't find it, dadgummit. And that's literally what I think. It's like, and so that's me. And again, I know it's going to win because I'm one of those reverse predictors that, Seth is against it. We're in. Woohoo!
Miles, what do you think about it?
Well, it's an issue of trust, isn't it? Little by little, we give so much to Google, and they give you back little bit at a time. But yeah. I mean, the question really comes down to what really was the actual cost of that in terms of information that you've given them over the years, and the value that information has to Google so that they could give you something back, which clearly in this particular case didn't cost Google anything. They're just matching a vendor who's got a deal with a customer who's got a need, and the query comes up with you as the result. So yeah, I mean, I get it, I understand. I'm just I'm a little cautious, but how do you be a little cautious in the 21st century anymore? You can't. I mean, come on, let's just give up.
We geeks all want the computerized assist. We all want Jarvis, right? And we've all wanted Jarvis forever. You guys probably saw that TV show back in the 90s called Time Tracks, where the guy had this like credit card sized computer that he carried with him. There's so many iterations of that in sci-fi going back decades. Why is that such a common theme? Because we all want it. We all want an R2-D2. We all want a C-3PO. We all want a Jarvis. And you don't get Jarvis without giving control. I mean, Tony Stark, Jarvis runs everything, runs his entire empire. And now some of you people are going to say, yeah, but he owns and controls Jarvis, right? And Google is someplace else. But somebody's got to build that logic. Somebody's got to make that happen. You're always going to be buying your product. Even Luke bought the droids from the Jawas, and they had previous owners. That's all. You're never going to be able. You're not Tony Stark. You're not going to be able to build that. So if you want Jarvis, you're going to have to trust the builders of Jarvis.
Okay, but you could argue that Luke was merely getting back stolen property because they used to belong to his dad. So he was having to pay the fence for something that his family rightfully owned. So it's one thing if you build it and you develop it. I'm sorry.
He didn't build R2. He built C-3PO, though.
I'll tell you what.
No,
I'll tell you what.
He had R2.
How about this idea? It's okay and absolutely good and acceptable, and we should celebrate it as long as whatever Google is providing, that you can live without it. Should the day come that Google is no longer your favorite, search engine or your favorite automotive car product or whatever it might be, that that we have at least a semblance of control unto ourselves. The second we give that up and we can't live without Google, then I've got reservations. And
I would have a very difficult time functioning without my Google services. I depend on them to schedule and remind and run my life. I truly do. There are other services that I could probably cobble together the same types of things without Google. But honestly, I would have a very difficult time if Google went away and all their services went away tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'd have I don't know if I'd call it, for me, I wouldn't call it a difficult time. I would say I would be far less efficient. Like, I'm still somebody who can read a map. I can, get a map and work out where to go in the car. I don't need a GPS device telling me to turn left at the, in the next 400 yards. It's nice, but I don't need it. And I guess I could say the same thing about search engines. I can still go to the library and look something up.
Yeah.
It's an inconvenience, but
this is next week's topic.
Oh yeah. Oops.
Thanks, Mark. You're ruining next week's show.
Well, that's what I do. I ruin things preemptively. Well, my lead in there was yet another YouTube service that, Miles, you're on board with at the moment anyway, is YouTube TV.
Yeah, well, I am, because this is lesser of evils, right? Because I think that cable television and cable providers started off as absolutely amazingly great and gave us so many channels and all that stuff. But it was originally on the pretense that if you paid them a subscription, you wouldn't get ads. Well, that didn't stay around very long. Anyway, eventually we got ads, and then it seemed like the amount of money was just never enough, and we all ended up paying over $100 a month for cable, and then found that there was just never anything good enough on there to justify it. So I'm cool with like YouTube TV coming around with a $35, buffet model, all you can eat TV on your device on 6 devices and cloud DVR and all the things that they're doing. But, it all comes down to content. Well, this week I found out this a little while ago, but they'd added the AMC networks to their lineup, which included AMC, so you watch The Walking Dead and whatever else. And then also things like BBC America got added on, which was good. There was about a half a dozen or a dozen channels added on. And then last week, all these Hispanic channels started to add in, like Telemundo, I guess, and a bunch of others. And it's just showing me that if this continues at the pace they're continuing, they will be the cable company. And, and that's fine at $35 a month. It's a lot better than $100.
But cable started out at $35 a month too.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah. Google's motto of do no evil, you don't see the little white card that's in front of the last part until we own their souls. So they keep that part kind of hidden. So, I don't know. I would love to get it, but then I would have to buy another antenna and get another up to 8. What do I have? Up to 8 megs. And it's more crap. So,
well, YouTube, Apple had the clout to go to the music industry and say 99 cents a song, take it or leave it. You'll either sell your songs to us or people will steal them. Done. And you take it or leave it, and the music industry took it. Google has that kind of clout with the cable company. They can go to AMC and say, we're going to pay you 1/5 of your carrier fee, and we're going to send your content to 10 times as many people as you have right now. Take it or leave it. They have that kind of clout, and I expect in a year or two for YouTube TV to be the premier cord cutter service. I really think that they have the ability to do that if they double down on it.
Yeah, they're not far away from being in a position to do that. They just have to roll out regionally to everywhere they can. And they're missing maybe the Turner channels, the Turner network, stuff like CNN and so on. Other than that, they've got sports. They've got locals in most areas. Not that I really worry too much about that because I've got, over-the-air free stuff for me. But it's very compelling. It's not far away, and it's going to get better.
Yeah, I'm still in the PlayStation Vue camp, but Google's service offerings already beat it in several ways. PlayStation Vue, I can do 4 things at once. Their DVR feature is a very air quotes DVR. And Google, they're saying, record whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, true DVR. That's really the only company out there that I think is offering a true cloud DVR, although other people are calling it that. I'm not on board with it yet, but the beauty of this modern world is you're free to jump. And none of these people have any kind of contract. Sling TV, Hulu, Google, PlayStation Vue, none of them. So you pay for a month, you don't like it, you jump ship. You decide you don't like that, you come back. And it's not like DirecTV where, you left us, and so now you have to pay the screw you price. Instead of, all new customers get this really great price, but since you were a customer of ours a year ago, you get the screw you price. And these people aren't doing that.
Yet.
Yet.
Because DirecTV used to not do that. Dish used to not do that. Back when they were the new people trying to attract and fight, the cable companies until they got bigger than the cable companies. And they thought, hey, we'll show you.
I mean, no, it wasn't they got bigger than the cable company. They were bought by a cable company. Nordic in the chat room says that you've said before that Google has yet to find a business model that makes money. Could this be it? This is actually, it dovetails beautifully with Google's only business, which is selling ads. Google is not a search company. They're not a car company. They're an ad company. And where better to sell ads than YouTube TV? You're going to get those little pop-up things. They're going to, like you're seeing on YouTube now, context-sensitive ads that are going to come up. And, of course, you can pay a fee to get rid of those. But that's going to be their model, I really think. And it's going to work because their subscription fee probably isn't enough to cover their carriage cost. There always has to be some other thing there. And I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the premium, the upsells for whatever. But Google is so big right now, the storage costs them literally nothing. And the bandwidth pretty much costs them nothing because they're already serving all that bandwidth. So it costs them less than it would Time Warner or some other company. But yeah, I think we're seeing the future of Google, at least a future of Google.
Could be.
All right. And that's it for our stuff to talk about before we talk about stuff. And now we're just going to turn the floor over to Miles. I'm going to mute my microphone and go have a cozy beverage of my choice while he talks about international travel. Take it away, Miles.
Have you ever turned up to an airport? I mean, a big airport. This happened to me in LAX in the Tom Bradley terminal, where you walk into where the ticket counter is, and you look up on the board at this massive wall with all of the flights and where they're going to, and you see all these different carriers. They're going to Shanghai, they're going to South Africa, they're going to Argentina, Kenya, Europe, Canada, wherever they're going. And you sort of thought to yourself, the level of effort for me to walk through that TSA security thing and go to gate whatever, means that for the same amount of effort, I could end up getting out of the plane in any of these places on the world. And that fascinates me. That whole idea that you can walk into an airport terminal, pay some money, and choose which gate to go and walk into a plane and get off in some far-flung place on the other side of the world, and it's just that easy. It
really is magical. You drop a pin anywhere on a globe, and I can be there in 24 hours.
Yeah, it's nuts. And what I started to realize when I started traveling internationally in my 20s, but what happens to you when you step in a place that's not your country, that maybe doesn't speak your language or doesn't share a lot of your cultural values, or that maybe they do, but they look at things differently. They have different cultures, different approaches, different policies, procedures. You start hearing other people talking about the way they live their lives, and everything starts widening in your brain. It's not you have a point of reference which is so wider that allows you to look back on your own life when you get home and compare what your day in the life looks like to somebody, say, in Romania or somebody in Thailand or somebody in Peru. And everyone, we're all human beings. We all, have similar goals, ambitions, and what we want to do with our lives. But the experience that somebody has on another planet compared to mine is just fascinating to me. So you get this thing, most travelers call it the travel bug. And once you start, it's addictive, and you can't get rid of it. Where I come from, any flight to an English-speaking country, with the exception of New Zealand, usually was about 13 to 15 hours minimum. If you wanted to fly to London, it's 26 hours. If you want to fly to Los Angeles, it's about 15. It's a pretty big ordeal, and so you don't do it all that often. But living in the United States, I'm like a kid in a candy store, because I couldn't make those trips, without spending a day of my life sitting in a silver tube. Now it's, 5 hours and I can be in Nova Scotia, or 8 hours I'm in London, or 4 hours I'm in Costa Rica. I mean, this is crazy. And so I've become a travel geek. I'm a geek in a lot of things, but I just love travel. And so what I've done over the years, I did an inventory count once of how many times I've crossed the equator in a plane. I think I'm up to 42 times now, which is crazy. But it's
That's
just
a
because,
lot.
it is a lot. But, you go home, that's 2 times. Like, you go there, you come back. And you do it every year or two. And you also do all these other trips. And then there were times back in the 90s I had to do 4 or 5 or 6 times a year. Yeah, it builds up. And so now these days I tend to find myself heading towards Europe and Asia and South America. But what's happened is I find that every single time I do it, I have a checklist of all these things that I have to do to make sure that everything's done. And most importantly, I've learned how to hack the system where I effectively travel basically for free. But I'm not going to go into details about that. I will go into details about how you can get the most out of your travel opportunities.
But for $19.95, he'll sell you his 35-minute video that explains all his travel secrets.
Well, no. Well, we won't go there. Anyway, so that's it. I mean, we were talking a little earlier before about the fact that domestic travel and international travel, you do get on a plane possibly. And you do end up, getting out at another end somewhere. But there's a whole different game when you're prepping for international travel as opposed to domestic. So that's basically the pretense to all of the stuff that I can go through and talk about. But before I do that, I was just going to ask you guys about your domestic travel experiences and how that might have played in as well.
I'm not a flyer. I have flown a dozen times, maybe total, in my life. I'm larger than the average person, and more airlines are antithetical to anybody who is larger than a small person. I mean, even normal average size people are getting squeezed out these days. So whenever possible, I drive. If it's less than like 30 hours in the car, I would choose to drive, because flying, you end up having to rent a car in most places anyway. So say you go to say you live an hour from the airport, which most people don't live within an hour of the airport. Most people live farther away than that, but let's call it an hour. You go there, you got to park, you got to go through security. You're supposed to be there now, like they say, like 3 hours ahead of time. I don't know if anybody actually does that, but those are the rules. So there's 5 hours of your time there just getting to the plane, to the airport and on the plane. Then when you get off wherever you're going, again, most people don't travel to within an hour of the airport. You're going somewhere away from the airport, unless it's a resort type thing. You got to rent a car. You got to go through all the deplaning and stuff. You got to go argue with the people because you lost your bags. So you're gonna lose 6 to 8 hours just in the non-flight stuff. So I'm a car guy, and I figure at any point I'd just rather be in my own vehicle and enjoy the open road. So that's my travel philosophy.
Yeah, no, I'm a lot with Mark. I've went to Hawaii. I went there once, I guess. 2 years ago now. I've been to Australia once, so I've crossed the equator total of 2 times. But the last job I had was me flying around the country to different sites. A lot of them were, I don't know, just different places. And so I got to travel a little bit there. And I hate the hassle. I hate the fact that, they just want to tell you, shut up and moo. You're not allowed to be a human being. You're automatically a terrorist sleeper agent. And, okay, I am fat and I'm wearing my backpack while I'm sitting in line 30 minutes. And it's like, well, the reason you got additional screening was because of the sweat. And I'm like, I was sweating because of the backpack that I was wearing. And then, I look on the spot and I'm fat. I'm not in any way saying I'm not fat, but my fat, it almost is like a box in front of me. And so I look on the thing and it says, these possible things. And one time I was just a little ticked off. So I just held up my shirt and said, see, it's just fat. And, they can't do anything whenever you show them it's just fat. And so I hate the fact that me within this country, traveling to another place within this country, I am treated like a second class criminal mastermind suicide bomber who apparently, wants to murder children and rape cattle or something. And you're not allowed to be human when you're flying. And I hate that. So I would much rather drive, but I really, I don't have super strong opinions on that. So.
I get
TSA is your friend.
I get the quote random security checks every time I fly. They dust my hands for gunpowder residue. They feel me up when I walk through the metal detectors. Every time I get the random treatment. I'm pretty sure that's not random.
Yeah, and I was going. My job was to be a tech, and so I have my tech kit in my carry-on. Well, had an issue with luggage and stuff, and so this person found me this ticket. Hey, you can go right now and carry on your flag. So I'm in the line. I'm about next up, and I go, oh crap! I have my toolkit on in this bag. They'll bury me under the airport. So I had to go back and just say, hey, I have a toolkit in here. I think it has like a screwdriver and stuff like that in it. And they're like, oh, okay. So in that case, here, sit down for 3 hours till another flight. And I'm just like, come on. It's ridiculous.
All right. Yeah. So enough whining about airports, Miles.
Well, let me go through some of the things that I've used that make life a little easier. So these are kind of, I've got this broken up into different sections and so on, but I'll start with airlines since we're talking about it. Okay, so I'm going to go through a lot of this stuff pretty quickly because there's a lot of it. If anybody wants to go back and listen to this sort of stuff afterwards and take their own notes or compare their own experiences or add it together, maybe that we can all create a community list of how to hack the travel system and make it actually pleasant. Okay, so first one I would say in terms of airports and airlines, if you're going to go somewhere, book your ticket at least a week ahead. Now, that's domestic and international rules. International, probably a month ahead is a better idea, but literally they will double the price on your ticket if you don't book it within 7 days of your departure. If you book it shorter than 7 days.
And it's been my experience also, Miles, maybe you can corroborate this, that if you plan it too far ahead, it's more expensive. If you're planning it 4 months ahead, you're not going to get any kind of deals. At least in my experience, you end up paying almost a premium price because you're over-prepared.
Yeah, you will. Airlines will allow you to book up to 12 months ahead for a ticket. The problem with that is that often that they will do seasonal breaks so that you might get a better price unexpectedly. But it's very, very hard to predict that stuff. And normally there's very short booking windows that allow you to take advantage of it. So I've always booked as far ahead as I can. Most of the time, however, I book with frequent flyer miles. So I'm dealing with a very small number of allotted seat availability. And so doing it well ahead of time is the way to grab the best seats, particularly if you're looking at trying to travel in business or first class. There are very, very few seats available on most of the carriers, particularly some of the longer routes like across the Pacific. Trying to get those seats is next to impossible. So I would book them well ahead of time. But if you're going to pay money for the ticket, you could definitely get lucky. And they could give you some sweetheart deal. And don't forget also, a lot of times if you book a ticket that's refundable, there may be some penalties, but you can check with the carrier. You may be able to cancel one ticket and then rebook it again. And the airlines know this. So if you call them up and say, hey, listen, I bought this ticket a while ago, and now you've got this deal. You know what? 9 times out of 10, my experience has been that they'll actually just give you the deal. So it's worth, sometimes calling doesn't hurt. All right. So let's talk a little bit about different carriers and how they work. Carriers used to make money on tickets. These days they make a fair amount of money on tickets because of fuel costs being so low. But most of the time, particularly when fuel was much higher, they made their money on ancillary charges, particularly things like baggage. So now it used to be you could travel, internationally you can typically travel with one bag in the hold for free up to 50 kilos, 75 kilos or maybe 50 pounds. But if you're traveling within certain regions, those rules will change. Europe will give you, under certain ticket classes, up to 23 kilograms for free, and then anything after that you pay, and you pay big time. This will catch you off guard if you don't know about it ahead of time. So get your understanding of what the baggage rules are on the carriers that you're going to be traveling on. I was in Paris last year, and we didn't realize that the carrier, which was EasyJet, we were flying to Prague, and we didn't realize that these guys were going to charge us for carry-on bag, and these are small, regular carry-on size luggage. And because I did not know that, and I found out at literally the gate about to board the plane, they charge you 3 times the normal price for baggage when you're in that situation, because what are you going to do? And the travel industry are sharks, and they'll take any advantage of this that they can, which is why we geeks have to be more sharkish than they are and know ahead of time what the deal is. So just be careful. They will slug you when they can. Okay, finding the best deal on tickets. There's a whole bunch of little tricks. This is a whole science unto itself. Travel geeks go nuts on this thing. There is a website called ITA Matrix. It's now owned by Google. It should be, bookmarked in your browser if you're a traveler. You can put in your destination, where you're coming from, where you're going to. You can do multi-legged trips. And it will tell you every single carrier that will get you there or within QE of an airport near it, and deals that are within X number of days of your intended flying time. And using tools like this gives you a window into how many options you really do have. It's an important tool to use. It's free. You might want to consider, if you're traveling, for example, from, say New York to Rome, you might find that it's cheaper to book a flight to New York to London on one carrier, let's say Delta, and then book a carrier from New York to Rome on Ryanair or one of the cheaper carriers in Europe, and do everything one way. And then book your return trip back one way with different carriers to get the best deal. It used to be that people thought that was going to flag them for terrorism. Who buys one-way tickets, but somebody who doesn't expect they're going to blow themselves up on the other end or whatever. Not the case. Most people these days buy one-way tickets to get the best deals. And so it's an important thing to know the different carriers that serve the different routes, but do it one way and you will find yourself often that you can get the best deal. There's another option which a lot of people do, is considering throwaway legs. And what that means is that if you wanted to fly to, say, Los Angeles to Cleveland, and that route is not a common route, so they are going to charge you. Let's change that. Let's say you want to fly from LA to Chicago, and that is a common route. And they know that certain times of the year, everybody wants to fly that route. So what you do is you book a flight that goes to a non-common endpoint that's cheaper, and you throw away the last leg of it. So let's say you want to get to Chicago, but there's a flight to Cleveland that goes through Chicago. You might be surprised that the flight to Cleveland is half the price of a flight to Chicago. So you go to Chicago, you dump the last leg of the trip, you get off, and you're good to go, and you got half-price ticket.
Which means you better be carrying on.
With checked baggage, right?
No, you can't. You want to do it with carry-on. But my philosophy is to do everything with carry-on. I travel all around the world, and I only do carry-on. I never do checked baggage. I've lost bags, or had bags lost way too many times. And I just rebelled against that and just did it all myself. But as a result, I opened myself up to taking advantage of those sorts of things. And that does work. And the airlines don't like it. They can't stand the fact that they've got a seat allocated to you for that last leg and you're not on it. And so what they do is they oversell the tickets, and next thing you know, you see some guy getting dragged down the aisle on a United flight because he didn't want to give his seat up. That is a product of doing that sort of thing, but it's how the world works.
Just out of curiosity, I was on your Matrix software, and if I wanted to fly myself, my wife, and my 3 children from Atlanta to Heathrow, and I put in a around the July 4th, like leaving somewhere around the last week. I gave it some parameters, some fuzzy parameters, somewhere around the last week of June, returning sometime after the first week of July. Just $12,000. Just by the way,
Yeah,
this is why I don't fly.
No. You don't do that route. The reason why it's so expensive is that London Heathrow charges enormous fuel surcharges and airport tariffs to land in that airport. So what you do is you fly into Dublin, and then you just get a little shuttle flight across. And in fact, you don't even need to go into Heathrow. If you fly into Dublin, you can just get a shuttle flight into Gatwick, which is another airport there. And if you need to get to Heathrow, there's an almost free metro train that will just get you straight there. Or you can fly into Frankfurt and do the same thing. You can fly into Rome. You can fly into Barcelona. It doesn't matter. You can fly into Brussels. They're all cheap if you know how to play the game. But don't fly into Heathrow. You know, I tell you, a good place where you can do it really, really cheap is Paris. Because Paris, everyone thinks Paris is a terrorist haven, and that if they go there, they're going to get blown up. So what you do is you fly into Charles de Gaulle Airport on an Air France ticket because they're really, really cheap. And then you take the Channel to London. And you'll be surprised how cheap it comes out to.
It only saved me $1,000 going to Dublin.
Did it? Oh, well, it's a start.
Yeah.
We can continue to get that down. I would think that with a little bit of time and energy, we could at least get it down to maybe 30-40% of that price.
Yeah, Mark, you got to look at it this way. That $1,000 was only the first service pack. You got all other kinds of hot fixes and security updates before you get that down to a usable level.
And I did pick business class because I'm not going to fly economy overseas. I can't physically make myself do that. So I'm sure it'd be a lot cheaper if I was willing to ride with the luggage.
Well, I tell you what, I won't give away the farm here, but I will tell you that since you live in the hub of Delta, with a little bit of credit card and travel hacking, we could get you on a flight that wouldn't cost you a thing. But it takes a little bit of work, and you will sacrifice some time for the money. But, you know, hey, it's all doable.
All right. I didn't mean to derail you, but just while you're going on about finding the best places, deals and all that sort of stuff, I just wanted to illustrate why, for me, international travel is just not practical.
Okay. Yeah, I will. I want to challenge you to change that paradigm or on that, because I think it can be, but let me go through this stuff first. We'll see if we've got any time left and we can hack a little bit.
All right.
Okay. All right. So there's another thing you might want to know about. It's called open jaw. Open jaw bookings is when you have a multi-legged journey that this one's an interesting one. Okay, try this one out. There used to be, and some carriers still do this, there used to be this thing where you could fly from one region to another, regions being typically countries or continents. And as a result of doing that trans-regional trip, they would give you a free ticket inside the region to use up to 12 months later. And there used to be a little trick, and people still do it. And what they do is they break up their travel into multiple travel trips over, say, a 12-month period. I'll give you an example. If I want to fly for free from Phoenix to, let's say, Seattle, but I know that I'm going to do that sometime later in the year. But for right now, what I'm going to go to, I don't know, Rome. So I'm going to book a flight that's trans-regional that's going to go, I don't know, Phoenix, JFK to Rome. And then I'm going to come back, and this is all on one ticket. So that one ticket gives me the routes in and out. And when I get in Rome, I have the option to maybe do a little inter-Europe trip to, say, I don't know, Sweden, if I want. I mean, whatever I want to do. It's no big deal. But I know that the trips within Europe are really, really cheap on the local carriers. So I'm not going to use my international option. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go Phoenix, JFK. I'm going to go JFK, Rome. I'm going to come back from Rome, but I'm not going to land in Phoenix. I'm going to make sure that what I do is I land somewhere other than Phoenix, maybe Miami. And then I'm going to buy one of those cheap Southwest flights that gets me one-way Miami to Phoenix for, I don't know, $100 or something like that, a couple $100 maybe. The reason I do that is I haven't completed my journey, and I have up to 12 months to complete it. But I'm back in Phoenix now because I bought that little trip, that little interconnection, which was probably really cheap or whatever. I can use the last leg of that trip up to 12 months ahead. And I can use it anywhere that's within the region. That may include Hawaii or Alaska or Puerto Rico or wherever. So basically, by extending that trip over a 12-month period and never actually completing it, the last ticket's free. Now, I have to get back from there, but half price is a good deal, right? So that's a pretty common little trick people do when they do interregional travel, is they never actually end up coming back to where they left. So just saying, I'll put that out there. People can think about that one and work it out, but it can be done. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get through this list pretty quickly because there's a lot of stuff here. Just finishing up on some of the airline stuff. A lot of people will buy travel insurance when they travel. If you have the right credit card, you probably don't need to do that. Most larger credit cards, the more expensive ones, the ones that have the annual fees and so on, often include free travel insurance. So check your credit card terms and conditions. You can save yourself a packet.
My take on travel insurance is it's a penalty for carrying through with your plans.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, it's supposed to be things like lost luggage, stolen stuff, hospitalization, medical, and it rarely ever gets claimed. But when it does, the insurance companies may not pay. They really don't pay much. But if a credit card company offers it, they typically have to. So I would check your credit card offerings because often it's a nice little additional perk they keep, for you to have that card. They may include that and people forget about it. Okay, so you were talking about seats before. One of the things that's interesting about most of the planes these days, they're either made by Boeing or they're made by Airbus.
Airbus.
Yeah. So they're a pretty common. There are, obviously different models of planes, and some are extended range, and some are long range, and some are just regular flights. But as a result, there are a few websites out there that you can actually log into if you know the type of plane that you're going on and who the carrier is. They'll actually give you everything about the seating on the plane and where the best seats are. And you might be surprised where they actually end up being, and they'll tell you where not to get that seat. Because maybe it's, next to the bathroom or something and it stinks half the flight or you don't know. You just got to try the stuff out. But I put a link in here to one of those. I think it's Seat Guru. And they will actually let you check the seat. Now, this was actually important. I've discovered that if you have the choice of carriers, particularly in my case, going from California to Australia, it's a 15-hour flight. It's a long flight. Having a nice size seat's a handy thing. Well, Virgin Australia offer a 19-inch wide seat, which is standard economy. Qantas have a 17-inch seat. Now, 2 inches doesn't sound like much. It's a lot when you're sitting there for 15 hours, trust me. And if the price is similar for both carriers, go with the one with the wide seat. But they're not going to tell you they're wider than so-and-so. They will just say it's an economy class seat. It'll cost this amount of money. But you can go to Seat Guru and find out exactly what you're getting for the money. And that's probably not a bad idea. I'm also a bit of a fan of booking seating towards the rear of the plane if you're doing carry-on. If you've ever been on a busy plane that's been booked and you happen to be in the last boarding group, you'll know that sometimes you can't find a place to put your bag because it's all been taken up. Well, of course, if you don't know that until you're already halfway down the plane and you can't go backwards because there's this line of people behind you. If you're at the back of the plane, the chances are you're going to find a place to put your bag that's going to be in front of you when you deplane. And that means that you're not going to wait for everybody else to get off the plane before you can go back behind you to find the bag because there was only one spot left and it's behind you. So if you aim to go to the back of the plane, you'll find all the spots for the luggage, and that way when you deplane, you'll be going forward. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yep. It's something people forget. Everyone wants to sit at the front of the plane. good luck if your bag won't fit there. So something just to keep in mind. Okay, airports. These are interesting. Airports are changing so much over the years. They're turning into shopping malls and strip malls and restaurants and food courts. It's crazy. They've got to do this stuff, I guess, to bring the business in. Well, one of the things they do is they give you lounges. Certain carriers have lounges, like Delta has a lounge, American Airlines has Admiral's Club. There's a whole bunch of lounges. Well, what people forget is that often certain credit cards give you free lounge access for you and the family. And the best provider of that is American Express. If you have a platinum card, and look, platinum card's not cheap, but if you're a business owner, you might have one of these. That will allow you and 2 other members to enjoy their Centurion lounges effectively for free. And that means free drinks, free food, free booze, free relaxation. They even have massages, everything, showers, the whole bit. Won't cost you a dime if you got the right credit card. So next time you're looking to shop around to get a credit card, consider that if you are traveling, you might want to consider one that has all the perks. They also include a thing called a priority pass now, which gives you access to all of these third-party lounges all over the place. And with that card, again, you and the family members can come in and use it for free. Some restrictions apply. For the most part, it's pretty valuable. Other cards that give you lounge access include Citibank. They have Citibank. I think Barclays do it as well. They have an Admiral's Club for American Airlines. But I personally like the Centurion Lounge on American Express ones. And they're in a lot of major airports. I think probably about a dozen in the US. But they're really good. They're really good. All right. Okay, so that's airports. Let's get to hotels real fast. Hotels give you a lot of perks if you stay within the chain. Often, if you book like 4 or 5 nights in a hotel, they might give you another night for free. There are chains that own chains of hotels, and the biggest ones are Starwoods. They have a program called the Starwoods Preferred Guest. Hilton has an honors program. IHG, which is like Hyatt, they have a program. Intercontinental, I think that is. I'm sorry. Hyatt have their own program. If you stay within the family, you can get a lot of cross benefit from that. There's ways to play it. I'll admit I don't pay for hotel accommodation when I can get away with it, because I use Starwood's Preferred Guest and I can stay at a Sheraton or a Westin pretty much for free. And that's because of a points thing that they've got going and the way that you accumulate. But it sure helps when you're staying at a nice 5-star, Westin, when you've just gotten off a plane for 10 hours. So anyway, I won't go into too much detail, but those programs are not something you should ignore. They don't cost anything to sign up for it. And as you stay in hotels, you're actually booking up sort of credit towards a cheaper run down the line. Also, if you're traveling for work and you're not taking advantage of all of these programs, you are doing yourself a disservice, because you could be booking up all this stuff for the family for free that you could use for that, summer vacation, and it won't cost you anything. Just comes out of mileage. So
yeah, that's a pro tip there. If your company is buying your airline ticket and paying for your hotels, they're not taking those frequent flyer miles or whatever. Most of the time they can't. So you sign up with your own frequent flyer miles and your company is paying for the trips and you get the bonuses. That's definitely something, if you're not doing that and you travel for work, you should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I earned a few free nights doing that, which was cool.
It is, and it just feels better when you don't have to pay for it. I mean,
Right.
It just does. And look, I'll give you an example. Look, if you're traveling on American Airlines for business and you have to travel all the time, you're one of those people that has to do a lot of traveling for business, and you're clocking up the miles, you can convert those miles over to, say, Air France. And I have seen deals where you could fly JFK to Paris for 12,500 miles one way, say 25,000 per person each way. It sure doesn't take very long to clock those sort of miles up if you're doing business travel. You'll easily do that. If you can do that a couple of times, there's the family to Paris. So, don't ignore them. It's well worth grabbing these things. The other thing, which is a big thing that I like, is Airbnb. Airbnb is obviously where people, the whole idea was before, if you had a spare room, you'd rent it out to people who were traveling and make a bit of money on it. But actually, Airbnb's turned into a distribution network for hotels that have excess rooms, and you will stay at a top class hotel and pay. I've stayed in hotels that would normally retail at $350 a night for $75 because I bought it on Airbnb, and they are beautiful hotels. In addition, you'll find that Airbnb have interesting places. I was telling the guys the other day, we're staying in Italy on a trip coming up, and we're going to end up staying in an old abbey somewhere in Tuscany that I found on Airbnb that was converted into a kind of like apartment style or condo units or whatever. And it's like $85 a night. It's ridiculous. So I don't mind that. It'd be a great experience if the place isn't haunted. But, but who knows? It's fun though, right? It's another adventure. But anyway, Airbnb's great. Okay. If you are traveling international, this is where you've got to deal with the fact that you're going from one government to another. Make sure your passport's in good shape. And what I mean by in good shape, if you look at the last day that you're going to be traveling on your return leg, you need to have at least 6 months of additional time left on your passport before it expires, or they won't let you on the plane. That's kind of not a nice thing. So, yeah, you check your expiration time and renew those passports for every member of the family. I'm embarrassed to say that I have had one flight where I had to put the family on a flight and then run down to get my passport renewed 2 weeks later and rejoin them in another country because, I screwed up and I forgot to look at my expiration date. So don't be an idiot like me. Go and check it out yourself as well. The other thing is we have a very wonderful thing in the United States. We have a thing called a visa waiver program for a lot of our people from Europe, people from Australia and New Zealand. They can come in without needing a visa into our country, and those countries typically reciprocate that to us so that we can do the same going into theirs. Not all do that. If you wanted to go to, I don't know, well, pretty much anywhere. If you want to go to Ecuador, for example, you're probably going to need a visa. If you want to go anywhere in Africa, you're probably going to need a visa, and you're going to need to find out what the rules are for traveling with the visa because they often do not reciprocate. You'll learn very quickly that it's easy to have and I'm saying this for US people, for people in the United States. If you're in the US, then the US can dictate its rules for who can come into the country. But the day that you have to go down to the airport and leave the US and go into somebody else's country, guess what? Whatever bad stuff you did to them, they do to you. And it's really weird because what happens is if we charge too much for a visa, they then charge us too much. If we don't allow somebody in because they need a visa, they won't allow us into their country. It's a natural diplomatic thing that is always a sort of a tit for tat thing. And it happens all the time. So be aware where you're traveling and be aware of where you're going to need a visa and where you won't. And also realize that those rules can change. There is a discussion going on in the EU right now about rescinding a US visa waiver program to US residents in certain countries. So it may not be applicable across the board. Something to keep on, keep in the news, especially before your trip. You don't want to get stuck out there. Okay, money. Every country has their own currency. Not everyone uses US dollars. Thankfully, a lot of countries do, but you will find that if you're in Europe, you're going to be using euros. Maybe in England, you're going to be using sterling. If you're in Australia, you're Australian dollars, and so on. US dollars are probably appreciated in those countries, but you may not be able to transact to a general street vendor with US currency, so you're going to need local currency. Thankfully, electronic transactions are good. Credit cards work pretty much anywhere. ATM machines pretty much work anywhere these days. Problem is, though, you'll pay a fee. If you've got a credit card, check the card that you're going to take with you, because many of them do not charge what they call foreign transaction fees, and they're the cards you want to use. Don't use a card that does, or you'll get absolutely fleeced on those fees. They're horrible. The other thing is, don't go to a money changer in an airport and change a large amount of money. They will take 20% of it away from you, and you do probably have a little bit of negotiating room on there, but seriously, it's not a good idea. Find a local bank and do it there. All right, so I'm getting through this. Okay, gadgets. Okay, geeks, it's gadget time. You're on a plane for a long time. You'll probably want something to take your mind off how boring it is, and you're on a plane for a long time. So more than likely, you're going to take a tablet, you're going to take a phone, you're going to take a computer, you're going to take something, and chances are it's going to need a battery. Well, depending on how long you're on the plane, if you're going continental Europe, could be 8 hours. Going to Australia could be 15. Going to Japan could be 10. Shanghai is probably 12. Most devices don't last that long. Some do.
Isn't it very common now for long haul flights to have chargers and power in the seats?
On the newer planes, but your assumption is that the airline has spent a couple $100 million to buy new planes all the time. Chances are they're still using the fleet from 1998 that hasn't yet reached its end of life, and they haven't installed the USB chargers and so on in the seats yet. Unfortunately,
or that USB charger hasn't been broke because the flight before you, some 4-year-old little kid tried to jab whatever in it and yank it around and break it. So there's a lot of assumptions there. You want to make sure you have something that that you can provide power.
Yeah, you're right.
I wouldn't know anything about that, but so I've heard.
Relying on the airline to do it is probably not a good idea. So I like devices that can get me through the longest flight I need, and like 15 hours is a good sort of time period to think about. Most laptops, for example, certainly won't do that, but you can buy little power bricks, that are pre-charged that you can charge on the flight in your own, so you create your own little power station. As long as they let you on there with it and they don't sort of freak out, you got some lithium-ion battery that's going to blow the plane up, you should be fine. So you might want to think about that, particularly if it's for a family, because when the kids don't have something to watch, they get to be a challenge. So it's a good idea to load them up with stuff. And that also means loading them up with media. They're going to need something to watch. And I'm going to say, from the point of view, I know that nobody here ever pirates any copyrighted material, or, God forbid they do that. You're probably going to go to YouTube and download a whole bunch of videos you want to watch on the plane. So let's think about it that way. And you're going to put it all onto some sort of portable device, some sort of media. I'm personally a big fan of micro SD cards. You can get them up to 256 gigabytes if you want.
Which increasingly are being ignored by device manufacturers.
Yeah, which is weird. But that's part of the criteria of when I look to buying a phone or buying a tablet, I'm going to look for something that has a lot of battery. I like quick charging because, 30 minutes you can get 75% of the power in the thing. And it takes micro SD up to 256 gigs. It does narrow down the field a bit, but man, if you can get that device will last you forever.
And even if you have a laptop with, like a DVD or Blu-ray drive or whatever, if you take the time beforehand and rip that to a digital file on an SD card or a thumb drive, that uses so much less power than that spinning disc whirling around inside your machine. So one way to increase your life is to leave the DVDs at home, the CDs, the Blu-ray, whatever, and convert those over to something on a micro SD, a thumb drive or something like that. So that's a way to kind of quote unquote hack how long your power will last.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, case in point, I took a HTC 10 phone with a 256 gigabyte micro SD card and a bunch of content to watch, and did a flight from Sydney to San Francisco. And even at the end of that, I still had 47% of my battery left running on that device. And all I was doing was permanently watching TV on the phone. It doesn't use up much power. It's crazy how efficient it is. Get the right device for the trip, of course. Let's see. Okay, check your restrictions. There's been some stuff in the news about the fact that laptops may be banned from international flight. They've certainly been banned from certain countries. The reality is, they're going to ban it for everybody at some point, and that's going to mean that we're going to be more relying on watching media on our phones. I mean, even tablets are probably going to be part of that ban as well. And that's going to be really, really hard if you've got young kids, because you want to give them something to watch while they're there. You might want to think about phones as not only just phones, but as media devices, considering the bans coming up. But this is going to happen, I think. Okay, power standards. Don't forget, not everyone's in 110-volt land here. Most other countries are 240 or 220, and they all have different little weird plugs that goes in the walls. So you're going to need adapters. Amazon is your friend. Go there, look for international travel adapters. I personally like the idea of getting a power board, like a four-way power board that is designed for international standards, because whenever you're in a hotel and everyone's gotten off the plane and all their gadgets and their phones and their cameras or whatever are all out of battery, everyone wants to charge at the same time. So you need a board. You don't want just one thing. You need something that can handle multiple devices. Another thing is, because if you're going to be watching TV on a phone or on a portable device on the plane, planes are noisy. And chances are you want to be able to hear what you're watching. You can spend $300 and something on one of those Bose noise cancelling, great looking headphones. And, they're wonderful. They sound fantastic, but they're bulky. And the thing you don't want is you don't want to be carrying around big things when you're traveling. Monoprice have some awesome little noise cancelling headphones that are just earbuds. They're like $7. And they're incredible. Get a couple of pair of those. Get one for everybody in the family. If you have a problem with noise level because you happen to be sitting near an engine in the plane or it's just noisy, there's a really cool little device that I found many years ago called a Boosteroo. And no, it's not an Australian device. I think it's a noise amplifier and a splitter. So you have one of these things, and then multiple kids can feed off the same device to watch the show, but they can all hear it on their own headphones. I actually got them for going to motor racing, where if you ever go down to a track where you've got a Formula One race or something like that, it's super loud. And so you put on these massive noise, like industrial level headphones, so you're not going to lose your hearing, but you still want to be able to hear the trackside commentary. These Boosteroos are strong enough to be able to amplify that to the level it can handle a NASCAR race or anything like that. So they're very cheap and they're great. You put a little battery in them and it's good for the family. I love those things. Okay, off the gadgets. Onto quickly other and safety. Yeah, the world isn't as safe as you'd like it to be, unfortunately. You risk two things. One is other than physical harm, which is going to happen anywhere you go. It doesn't matter. Probably even in your local neighborhood, there are places you wouldn't go into. So it's pretty much a common thing. But the bigger the city, the bigger the risk. Obviously, one thing that is very common is cloning. Cloning of phones, cloning of credit cards, cloning of passports. Everybody's got an RFID chip on anything these days. You might want to think about one of those RFID protectors for your device. Certainly can't hurt. You might also want to keep copies of important documents like your passport, your visas. Put it in the cloud. Just take a scan of it, take a photo of it, put it up on Dropbox or something like that. If you lose your passport, at least you can find a copy of the passport page, with your photo and your name on it. And that may be enough to get your local consulate to be able to generate you travel documents so you can get home. But just keep a copy of something in the cloud. It never hurts. I also have a policy: don't ever take electronics with you that you can't afford to lose. You are going to get pickpocketed at some point. Somebody's going to try and slash your bag and steal your stuff. Just be careful. It's something everyone has to deal with. it's normal. It's just in some countries you don't see it coming, and gypsies are everywhere, and you never know what will happen. I'm not saying it will happen to you. I'm just saying be prepared that if it does, that you don't care that you lost that old $50 phone that you hardly ever use. Cell phones are a target for criminals. I've noticed increasingly in Southeast Asia, it's a common practice. If you're out there on your phone, you've got it out, you're texting somebody, or you're on the phone about to make a call, some dude in a motorbike comes straight by, grabs it straight out of your hand and runs off with it. Very, very common practice. Be careful. Protect this stuff. They're valuable. Just somebody who makes $1 a day, that thing's worth a ton of money. And the other one is pickpockets. This is not something in a movie. It's real. These guys are out there. You want to think about traveling with fanny packs or stuff you can put under garment because they are not likely to be pickpocketed. But this, I know everybody I know who's been to Rome, for example, has been pickpocketed. Everybody, which is scary because I'm about to go to Rome. So it's part of the course, right? You just got to be careful. So just, watch out. Keep it and make sure your whole family is aware of this. It's not just you, or everybody should be aware of the exposure, particularly on trains, buses, and tourist destinations. Okay, rental cars. If you're using rental cars, if you're traveling domestically in the US, rental cars are easy, great, and relatively cheap. They will try and slug you for insurance. They'll slug you for prepaid gas. They'll slug you for secondary driver. Anything they can do to make a buck. You want to check your credit card because many of the high-end credit cards come with car rental insurance on top of your home insurance policy, and therefore you will not have to pay anything. But the rules may be that you have to use that credit card to pay for the car rental. But if you do that, hey, you don't have to pay the insurance, and that could be hundreds of dollars saved. So just check that out beforehand. The one I like is the Chase Sapphire Reserve card that has a car rental insurance thing on it, and it's a good card for use with that. Driver's licenses are not all the same in every country. Everyone's got a different one, and some will accept US driver's licenses and some will not. You can travel, I think, in Australia for up to 90 days on a US driver's license, and in the US you can travel on most European, Australian, and other Western countries' driver's license for, again, between 30 and 90 days. But not all countries are like that. So just be aware that you don't end up renting a car and driving off and being a criminal and not knowing you were. Right. Getting down to the last part here, cell phones. Cell phone carriers are not all the same. You won't find Verizon in Europe. You won't find AT&T in Australia. Every country has its own little preferable carriers. Hopefully, you have a cell phone that is unlocked. Because if you don't, it's game over right there. And it's part of the reason why I don't like buying phones on a payment plan or you pay $99 for the phone and then X dollars per month for 2 years and you're on that carrier. Because this is a time when you need to be off that carrier. Because if you're in Europe, it won't work. There are some carriers, T-Mobile, for example, will let you use their service. Their data speed is kind of throttled back a little bit, but it works throughout Europe. But that's one of the very few that does that. Verizon will do Canada, Mexico, and the US, but nothing more than that. AT&T is much the same. If you are landing in London, you probably want to find a cell phone provider somewhere, maybe in the airport, somewhere near there, and buy yourself a Virgin card or a Vodafone card or something like that that'll let you use it all around Europe. And then you won't get slogged for data roaming. Data roaming and voice roaming is super expensive in certain regions. You might find on your phone there's an option in your settings to turn international data roaming off. Do it. It's a good thing. You do not want to be not doing that and your phone's out downloading updates or checking your Facebook status or whatever, and you get back to a $1,500 phone bill. It happens, people. Don't be thinking it won't happen. It will. Turn your data roaming off on an international carrier, or better still, get a local SIM, switch the SIM over, and make sure you're going over there with an unlocked phone. If you do not have an unlocked phone, get yourself on eBay and find a $75 HTC One M8 or something sort of halfway decent that's not current, that somebody wanted to sell because they got the new iPhone or whatever, and make sure it's unlocked. Pick that thing up before you go. Make sure it'll work with SIMs in your local region, and use that, and you'll save yourself a packet. And that is the end of my story.
Well, I must say, Miles, that was comprehensive. If it was nothing, it was. I mean, if it was anything, I don't honestly have any comment there. You covered it all as an experienced international traveler. Good tips.
Yeah, from the School of Hard Knocks.
I know I have dealt with people incoming to the U.S. Who found it inexpensive to just go to Walmart and buy a burner phone while they're here. I assume in a developed country that same model would work. You just find whatever their version of a Walmart is, or maybe a Walmart, and buy whatever the burner phone is in that country.
It's usually the SIM card. They won't sell you the whole phone. They'll sell you the SIM, though.
Okay.
And so then you've got to know, because there are different types of SIMs. You've got the micro, the nano, and the whatever the other one is. You've got to find out what your phone uses. Yeah, you've got to be a phone expert to travel. What's that all about?
Yeah, I wonder if you could go on eBay International and buy a phone and have them deliver it to a mailbox near the airport or something.
Yeah, or the hotel you're staying at.
Yeah,
You could. You could absolutely do that. Oh, here's another cool little tip. Google Voice is really cool, because if you can change your phone so that you're not using the number that your US carrier has given you, but you use a Google Voice number, and you can probably get one in your local region so it looks the same. That, because it's a data feed that has the voice and the text messages and everything goes through on that, you can use that number anywhere in the world, because it's going to be using data. So if you turn up to a hotel that has like free Wi-Fi, your phone is going to ring when somebody rings that number. Now, you don't even need a SIM card for that. So that's a habit I've done. Now all my cell phone numbers, Google Voice.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Google Voice for not only that, but also because it's trivial to block numbers. If somebody gets a hold of your number, if you're a Craigslister, for example, and you want to communicate with people, it's really easy to just say, never ring my phone, never tell me again. You can call me all you want and I'll never know it. Handy feature.
Well, yeah. And plus they do that, they read the voicemail and email it to you or something. That's kind of cool.
Sometimes it's even kind of close to what they say.
It's getting better. It really is. This is all for another time. We are running already into the hour and a half range there. So I'll just leave this to you, the audience. What follow up is necessary for this discussion? We got one more week before we go on vacation. So if you go post haste and leave a comment at elementop.com, ask Miles a question, and we'll be able to get the answer next week before he becomes yet again a world traveler and will not be able to respond to us because he will be doing all of these things. We may talk more about vacationing, staycationing, domestic sort of things in the future, but this was such a voluminous message here.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. There was nothing here that you could cut. Honestly, it was all valuable information. If I were planning to make a international trip, I would certainly take advantage of some of these things. I don't have the business relationships that you do in terms of the credit cards and the miles and all that sort of stuff. So it's just like I said, it's not entirely practical for me, but I could plan ahead. Like if I wanted to plan for my summer vacation in 2018, I could start now and certainly employ a lot of these things over the next year and maybe travel for free then. It's just too late for me for 2017.
It does take time. You're absolutely right. You can't do this stuff with 3 months to go. You have to be 12 months ahead and plan it out. But all good things come from planning, right? You you can't build a bridge overnight. You got to plan the thing out, and it's going to be worked. And the same thing with a great vacation. So yeah.
Okay. So now, Seth, what happened this week in history?
All right, Mark. On May the 20th, 1995, Microsoft and Intuit abandoned their merger plans. Microsoft Corporation and Intuit Inc. agreed to terminate their planned merger in order to avoid a Justice Department charge of violating antitrust laws. In the intervening 3 years, Microsoft continued to struggle against federal investigation of its dominance in the personal computer software market. Bill Gates' company had originally agreed to acquire Intuit in October of 1994 in a deal worth roughly $2 billion, but abandoned the plan after the Justice Department began an investigation of whether the move would give Microsoft too much dominance in the personal finance software market. And that happened this week in history, Mark. And now back to you.
So Intuit makes Quicken, which is still sort of the standard in personal finance. Microsoft had Microsoft Money that nobody ever used. And the Justice Department was concerned that if you combine something that nobody ever used with the thing that everybody's using, suddenly you would be a monopoly.
Yeah, but I think Microsoft, if I remember correctly, they had Quicken, and Intuit is QuickBooks. And so the Quicken and QuickBooks, man, I've slept since then. No? Okay.
No, Quicken and QuickBooks are both Intuit.
They are?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, but a lot of people did use Microsoft Money. So not so much anymore because Intuit doesn't charge quite the prices they used to. But a lot of people did use Microsoft Money. And it was one of those things where Microsoft got their market share by they tried to kill that market the same way they killed the browser market by flooding it with inferior stuff at a much reduced, if not free price.
I wouldn't want to trust Microsoft with my money. Don't trust them with my technology.
Yep.
Yeah, that's anyway, I'm not even going to go there. We trust people with stuff way more than we actually think we do. All this credit card stuff you've been talking about, you're trusting all kinds of banks with all kinds of things.
Oh, I know.
You can either have a network or you can have security. You cannot have network security. And now, Seth, what do you have to lower my productivity this week, thus making you look like a better hiring option?
All right. Well, this one, I don't know if could be good or bad, but it is Spot the Difference, found at spotthedifference.com. And so you go there and you click on something and you try to find the differences between one picture and the other. And then as you complete some, it gives you more levels that there are more things to find. So spot the difference. And some of them you're looking and go, you almost need a magnifying glass. So, this has potential to, when your manager walks by at that inopportune moment. So, but not as, I don't think this one will have the legs of like Fill the Oceans, but it could work in a pinch.
It's kind of cool.
I've always enjoyed those kind of puzzles, the spot the difference puzzles. And yeah, I did the first one that came up, the domino thing, and it was really easy. But the second one, the house, is immediately, I can tell it's a lot harder just at first glance.
It is a lot harder.
And then, of course...
And when you get to the second house, it's even harder.
Wow, this is hard.
It started out easy.
There's one.
It lulled you into a sense of complacency.
It did.
Oh, yeah, see, yeah. You know how to trigger the OCD brain in me. I can't leave this now. Once I've clicked on this picture, I'm stuck here. I'm in a loop until this is done. So you guys close the show because I'm done.
No, I spent like almost 10 minutes because I was looking for one and I was like, I gotta find it. And so, yeah, like I say, this could work with the right person. There could be an opening out there soon with my name on it.
Yeah, this one definitely. You got a winner on this one, Seth.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening. Miles, Seth, as always, thanks for your expertise in both international travel and making me insane. We'll see you next week. So this is that's the end of this podcast. And just let me remind you one more time: pay for what you like.
Cool. I was expecting something weird tagline there, Mark.
No, that's it. I have just decided that for the rest of the year, my tagline is going to be "Pay for what you like."
Oh, I'll be ready next time with
I
something.
like that.
That's just my my mantra for the year because people. It's a recurring theme that keeps coming up, and people need to pay for what they like.
Cool.
True.
Okay. I'll make this stop there. YouTube people, thanks for hanging out with us. Nordic, I don't know if you went away or if you just didn't have anything to comment on or if Miles put you to sleep.
I do that.
But it was nice having you with us for a brief while, and we will see you later. Bye, YouTube people.
Bye.
And
YouTube.